Good afternoon and welcome to today's press conference. Bienvenue à cette conférence de presse. My name is Mia Rabson. I am a reporter with Canadian Press and I will be moderating this event. We have with us Alex Benay, the Associate Deputy Minister of Public Services and Procurement Canada. And just before we get started, I need to say, to prevent disruptive and potentially harmful audio feedback incidents that can cause injuries, we remind all in-person participants to keep their earpieces away from all microphones at all times. When you are not using your earpiece, please place it face down on the middle of the sticker for this purpose that you will find on the table. Please consult the cards on the table for guidelines to prevent audio feedback incidents. These measures are in place so that we can protect the health and safety of all participants, including the interpreters, and conduct our business without interruption. Thank you for your cooperation. We will start with, I believe, a small presentation from our guest, and then we will take questions from the room. One question, one follow. If there are questions online, please use the raised hand function. Go ahead.
Merci beaucoup, Mia, et bienvenue à la séance d'information d'aujourd'hui. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from Ottawa, which means I'm on the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe and Algonquin nations. So today, Public Services and Procurement Canada is releasing its new quarterly report on HR and pay. As well as telling you a little bit about some of the things in the report, I want to run you through what we're doing to address the current pay issues and also where we're at in developing a new system. Je vais aussi parler de nos méthodes de travail qui diffèrent de la manière dont nous faisons les choses dans le passé. La séance d'information aujourd'hui s'inscrit dans une nouvelle démarche qui vise à faire connaître le programme et à accroître sa visibilité. Il s'agit de la première d'une série de séances qui auront lieu tous les trimestres dorénavant. L'information que nous présentons aujourd'hui se veut une référence à partir de laquelle nous pourrons partager les prochaines mises à jour. So from a current pay system and operations perspective, it's our responsibility to ensure that public servants receive accurate and timely pay, and that is the key driver for the work we're doing day in and day out. Over the last year, we've developed an enterprise integrated strategy on human resources and pay, which comprises basically of two streams, current operations and now transformation. Here's what we're doing right now to maintain and improve our current operations. For starters, we've identified 112,000 complex backlog transactions that we will tackle this fiscal year. We do not have control over intake at the pay center, which has historically increased year over year. In 2023, intake was 16% higher than in 2022, 30% higher than in 2021, 66% higher than in 2020, and 40% higher for years before that. We've assigned more than 200 compensation advisors to process these complex backlog transactions, and the goal is to process all of the transactions by March 2025. We also expanded the work at the Client Contact Center, the help desk, in an effort to increase resolution upon first point of contact and therefore resolve pay issues faster. À la suite d'une validation de principe concluante, nous mettons en œuvre un projet pilote qui introduira l'intelligence artificielle dans le traitement de certains types de cas au centre de services de la paye à compter du mois prochain. De plus, le mois dernier, en partenariat avec le Bureau du dirigeant principal des ressources humaines, nous avons commencé à normaliser la façon dont nous gérons la paye et les ressources humaines dans l'ensemble de la fonction publique. Cela consiste notamment à renforcer les meilleures pratiques de gestion des ressources humaines et de la paye chez les employés et les employeurs grâce aux actions unifiées sur la paye. Ces actions sont 7 mesures précises que les ministères adoptent pour optimiser l'utilisation du système actuel, réduisant au minimum les interventions manuelles que doivent faire les agents de rémunération au centre de paye. Ces mesures comprennent des pratiques telles que l'intégration uniforme des nouveaux employés le lendemain d'un jour de paye pour réduire au minimum le risque de problèmes de paye, ainsi qu'une plus grande utilisation des fonctions libre-service par les ministères eux-mêmes. Il faut comprendre que nos opérations sont complexes, mais qu'elles ne sont pas plus que celles de grandes multinationales ou de nombreux autres gouvernements étrangers qui doivent composer avec différentes administrations et différents barèmes de rémunération. Et pourtant, ces gouvernements payent leurs employés sans erreur et à temps. Nous voyons donc les choses ainsi. Voici nos besoins en rémunération et les problèmes que nous avons devant nous aujourd'hui avec les règles que nous avons devant nous, donc réglons le problème que nous avons devant nous aujourd'hui. Our review of external and internal reports pointed to a number of root causes for some of the issues we're encountering over the last 8 years. These include the fact that separating HR and pay through the use of separate systems for both pay and HR introduces a host of complexities in terms of paying employees, and we are one of the only organizations in the world to have separated our two systems in that manner. Secondly, the current system isn't the right one for the Government of Canada because it cannot be adapted to meet our very specific needs, which results in a high level of manual interventions that is required at the pay system and at the pay center. Thirdly, the current system cannot manage data centrally, which means that employee information lies with each employing department. This introduces many risks, including different habits in the HR data input. It means that every time an employee transfers, data must be sent from one location to the next, which often introduces delays. This is something that hinders our progress to clear the backlog and fix our pay issues. Therefore, bringing HR and pay together in a coherent, unified system is key to developing the new system. A new HR and pay system would replace most of the 30 HR systems in use across government. So let me update you on where we are with developing this new system. Donc, par rapport au système de paye de la prochaine génération, dans le budget 2024, le gouvernement du Canada a affecté 135 millions de dollars à la poursuite de la mise à l'essai et de l'adaptation d'une nouvelle solution de ressources humaines et de paye. Le prochain système de ressources humaines et de paye offre l'occasion de repenser la prestation des services des ressources humaines et de la paye aux employés dans un environnement totalement numérique. Soyons clairs, nous ne promettons pas de résoudre les problèmes ou de mettre en place un nouveau système pleinement fonctionnel du jour au lendemain. Nous savons qu'il faudra du temps pour que tout soit au point. Autrement dit, nous allons configurer et tester les éléments potentiels d'un nouveau système une étape à la fois. Nous serons ouverts et transparents. Lorsque nous rencontrerons des problèmes, nous en parlerons ouvertement et nous expliquerons la manière dont nous entendons les résoudre à travers nos rencontres trimestrielles et sur notre nouveau site web. Let me use the example of our Data Hub initiative. We are exploring ways to use data, including AI, to modernize the way we deliver HR and pay services. We anticipate creating a new, centralized place to manage employee data, meaning an employee's file does not have to move when they change departments. This way, when an employee does move, it will not negatively affect pay or benefits. It will ensure that if employees have a new rate of pay, that it is reflected straight away without the need for retroactive corrections and adjustments. We're also looking for feedback and support from experts. For example, we've published a request for information on the Data Hub initiative to get help and recommendations from experts in this field so we get this right. This is the year where we are building Dayforce as a replacement system for HR and pay and determining if it is a feasible solution for the Government of Canada. Procuring our centralized data hub is also on our list of activities for this year, as is integrating artificial intelligence in our operations and ensuring the feasibility of these new approaches. Dernièrement, par rapport aux communications ouvertes et transparentes, c'est dorénavant selon une approche proactive que nous allons communiquer avec les employés au sujet de leur paye et de leurs avantages sociaux, ainsi que des progrès que nous réalisons dans la résolution des problèmes de paye actuels et le développement du prochain système des ressources humaines et de paye. Nous nous engageons à nous montrer ouverts et transparents envers les employés en ce qui concerne leur paye, ainsi que les changements à venir pour qu'ils sachent à quoi s'attendre. Cela consistera notamment à communiquer directement avec les employés au moyen de notre nouvelle page Facebook, d'assemblées générales, trimestrielles et de rapports d'étapes réguliers. La participation des utilisateurs sera également au cœur de nos efforts. Nous discuterons avec les principaux intervenants en vue de faire circuler l'information utile aux employés, aux parlementaires, aux syndicats et aux médias. Cela se fera sous forme de groupes de consultation des utilisateurs, de l'élaboration conjointe de solutions et de bien d'autres activités. A big part of what we're doing differently is proactively disclosing what we're working on, and the quarterly report, as well as what we're doing here today, is the start of our progress towards transparency by design. Today I spoke to employees at PSPC, I spoke to employees government-wide, and I spoke to the unions, telling them everything I'm now telling you about the quarterly reports and about what we're doing. The next series of briefings will take place in the fall and will also include the publishing of a first set of documents to increase transparency around the work that is happening and the decisions that are being made. from project plans to records of decisions to timelines. This is an important part of our plan to be as upfront as possible to show what we are doing. En somme, nous nous engageons à divulguer de manière proactive l'information sur les décisions prises à l'égard de l'avenir de la paie dans la fonction publique fédérale, et ce, dès que nous le pourrons. Une communication ouverte et proactive sera la règle et non l'exception. Part of our new approach is to be as transparent as possible, and that's why I'm here today. We have provided you with a level set, and we'll be updating you on a quarterly basis in the next session taking place early in the fall. And with that, I'm happy to answer your questions.
Okay, again, we'll have one question, one answer. If you are online, use the raise hand function. We'll start in the room with Mélanie Crête from La Presse.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur Benay. Je voulais savoir, est-ce que c'est vous qui avez donné l'autorisation pour que 34 employés fédéraux testent le logiciel privé M-Persona?
Oui, oui, absolument, c'est moi. Premièrement, le logiciel M-Persona n'est pas un logiciel privé, c'est un logiciel ouvert. On a avisé tous les intervenants de ce fait à plusieurs reprises. Les employés n'ont pas travaillé à développer le logiciel. Qu'est-ce qu'ils ont fait? C'est qu'ils ont développé des recherches, des questions à utiliser sur le logiciel libre M-Persona pour ensuite rapporter ces questions-là à l'intérieur de notre projet, je dirais, de notre projet maître. Donc, ces employés ont commencé à développer le début d'une solution d'intelligence artificielle qu'on va mettre en place le mois prochain. Donc, il n'y a pas eu de travail qui a nécessairement été dirigé vers le développement d'un logiciel. On a utilisé un engin de recherche libre qui était ouvert.
Est-ce que vous étiez au courant que ce logiciel appartenait à quelqu'un qui est employé du Canafé?
Non. Initialement, non. Donc, lorsqu'on a su qu'il y avait justement un employé qui avait appartenu le logiciel, nous, qu'est-ce qu'on a fait? On a fait toutes nos recherches pour s'assurer qu'il n'y avait aucun contrat, aucune opération de la paie qui avait été compromise suite à la découverte. Et puis, on était à la fin de notre période, je dirais, de découverte avec le logiciel de toute façon pour procéder à l'étape suivante. Donc, on a juste fermé le processus de recherche.
Catherine May, Policy Options.
I just wanted to ask you about the whole pay simplification process. If the complexity of pay was sort of what derailed partly Phoenix, and now and everyone's always argued it has to be fixed for the next one, what's entailed in that simplification, and how far along are you? Is it just the collective agreements, and can you go through 80 or 100 of them, or how many there are in that year you're testing Dayforce?
Yeah, no, I'll speak to it to an extent, but part of that is also a Treasury Board Secretariat question, as you know. But as part of the last round of negotiation, there is an MOU that's been signed with the bargaining agents to, if there's mutual agreement to reopen negotiations, to simplify certain practices in order to make things simpler. So that's a good first step. On our side, from a solution perspective, as I mentioned, we're designing the solution to meet the current environment with its complexities. I think over the last 8 years, if we would have said that this has to be a hard, fast rule, must simplify before you implement a new system 8 years ago versus where technology is today, it's quite different. If I look at an Amazon or another multinational, they pay employees in hundreds of countries around the world with different legislation, different policies, and are yet still able to process pay. So we're designing the project against the current environment, and then if things get simplified down the road, I guess it just makes our job easier.
From a cost perspective, what's cheaper, to try and deal with it through negotiations, or paying whatever extra you need to do to, I don't know, buy your extensions and your configurations or whatever it is that you want the supplier to do?
That's a great question. It's actually literally what we're analyzing right now. So the cost to produce an extension, and an extension for us is something that the complexity of government requires Dayforce to develop in addition to its core packages. We have 11 of those to build this year. We're starting from a place where Phoenix has over 300. So to give you an idea, we're already in a world where it's a lot more easy. It'll be a lot easier to deal with the current platform in Dayforce than where we're looking at dealing with Phoenix. So there's a lot of difference between 300 extensions and 11. But we are analyzing that right now, and that'll be part of the material that we'll be able to release over time as we look at as all the decisions that are going to be made. That's why this transformation is not going to take place in a year. A lot of these decisions need to take place over a matter of time, and this is one of probably several hundred decisions we're going to have to make in the next 24 months.
Just to clarify, the 11 is what you've identified now. It's not, that's all we'll need to do.
Correct. We could go through this process of building the solution this year and discover we need more. We might need less. So right now, at this point, we have 11. that is, I would say, night and day compared to where we were when we launched Phoenix initially, where we had no idea. At this point, we know the unknowns, or at least the large parts of them, so we feel fairly comfortable at this point.
Laura Osman, Canadian Press.
Hey there, thanks for taking our questions. I think I heard you say during the employee update that as you're deciding which departments to start the new payroll system on, you want to start with ones where the backlog has already been eliminated. And so how important is it to kind of get through that backlog as more cases are coming online? How realistic is it to meet that March deadline?
No, I think that's a fair question. So yes, one of the things we want to look at doing is making sure that before a new department is transitioned, if it's transitioned, because I'll say it again, like we need to go through the year and parts of next year to build and see. But assuming all goes well, before we transition a department, there's certain things that need to be in place. That department needs an up-to-date org chart, for example. It needs to have a backlog that's cleared. So we're going to have to look at prioritizing backlog clearance as we go through this. Part of what I said also during that session and a little bit here is that we have to manage intake. If we do not get to a point where we wrestle intake to the ground, the backlog management is a problem. We have a team of 200, and we're now also putting new tools in their hands with this AI product that they have developed for themselves, as I mentioned with the earlier question. So we need to see where that's going to land in the next 6 months. How does the new tool function? How do we manage intake? And then which departments would we be starting with realistically based on a series of criteria in order to start rolling out the new solution? So all of that has to come together in the next 6 months. Again, those decisions we're going to make available on our website. When we've reached them, we'll publish the documentation.
If you are able to manage the existing backlog by March 2025, do you have a sense of what the updated cost of the entire sort of Phoenix debacle has cost so far?
Oh, so far we know so far we know it's cost $3.5 billion, the Phoenix situation. Projecting it into the future, I don't want to speculate on that, given the fact that I won't know, obviously. So right now we know it's a $3.5 billion cost. And we are managing the new project on a year-by-year basis with funding submission. So we are trying to keep the cost down that way so that we're able to manage it very tightly.
Emma Weller, CBC.
Hi. So I know that the Canadian Association of Employers is advocating for the government to compensate the workers for financial losses and the financial hardships. Is there any discussion if that's going to happen throughout this process?
At this point, I can't comment on that. That is a conversation for the employer. It is not something that's in scope of necessarily the technological and the process transformation. So we are focused right now on the technology solution and on revamping our processes to make sure that we don't replicate the mistakes of the past.
Thank you.
No follow, Emma. Okay, that's it for the room for now. We'll turn online. We'll start with Alexandra from Radio Canada.
Oui, bonjour. Vous ma question, c'est au sujet de Miramichi. Donc, quand on a implanté Phoenix, c'était question de centraliser le service de paye et donc, c'était la création du centre à Miramichi. Qu'est-ce qui va arriver de ces employés là-bas et est-ce que Dayforce va impliquer une restructuration de votre façon de promouvoir le service de paye? Est-ce qu'il y aura des embauches d'employés? Combien d'employés seront dédiés au service de paye?
Oui, non. Pour l'instant, il n'y a aucun plan de changement à Miramichi pour le centre de paye. Je pense que tel qu'on a discuté, on a beaucoup de travail à faire dans nos arriérés. On reçoit quand même, l'année dernière, je vous donne un exemple, on a eu 13,1 millions de chèques qui ont été dirigés vers les employés de la fonction publique. On avait besoin d'intervention manuelle du centre de paye pour 1,6 million de ces transactions-là. Donc, le besoin du centre de paye n'est pas à veille de disparaître, parce qu'il a fallu que le centre de paye gère justement 1,6 million de transactions avec des interventions manuelles. Qu'est-ce qu'on est en train de faire présentement? C'est une de nos livrables cette année, justement, va être au fur et à mesure qu'on configure et qu'on construit Dayforce, de regarder l'impact sur le modèle opérationnel. Ça, c'est certain qu'on va regarder à ça, mais c'est pas quelque chose qui va se produire du jour au lendemain, parce que, vu que j'ai mentionné qu'on ne fera pas de Big Bang, comme on a fait la dernière fois, on va faire ça de façon étape par étape. Il va falloir regarder au fur et à mesure qu'un ministère se fait mettre en œuvre, c'est quoi les impacts justement sur nos opérations, parce qu'on va le faire de façon graduelle. Donc, il est encore un peu trop tôt pour répondre à votre question directement, mais ça va être résolu au cours de cette année. Il faut qu'on ait une direction pour cette question-là durant l'année fiscale.
Mais en ce moment, Dayforce, il est opéré à partir de quel endroit et il mobilise combien de ressources?
Du point de vue de la fonction publique, juste pour clarifier? J'essaie juste de comprendre votre question par rapport au nombre de ressources.
Ben, c'est parce que Phoenix est géré par les employés de Miramichi. Puis là, vous me dites qu'ils travaillent à résoudre les arriérés. Est-ce qu'ils travaillent aussi en même temps à implanter des forces? Qui est en train d'implanter des forces? Puis ça se fait à partir de quel centre?
Oui, donc ça se fait à partir d'une combinaison. Donc, on a une série, on appelle ça des sprints à chaque 3 semaines. On a des douzaines et des centaines de sprints au cours de la prochaine année ou deux à conclure. À l'intérieur justement d'un sprint de 3 semaines, on a des employés de Miramichi, on a des employés de ministères fédéraux à travers le pays, on a des gens d'Ottawa ici aussi à service partagé au sein du ministère aussi chez nous. Donc, c'est quand même une équipe assez multidisciplinaire. Mais le projet est géré du bureau, dans le fond, de mon bureau à partir d'Ottawa, mais avec, je dirais, les gens de Miramichi sont impliqués de façon très personnelle et directe là, de jour en jour.
We'll go to Adam Harris, New Brunswick Telegraph Journal.
Hi there. Thanks for the questions. I'm working for the New Brunswick Telegraph Journal. My questions will be also about the Miramichi Pay Center there. I get from this new pay operations strategy that I guess the Miramichi Pay Center will be tasked with erasing the backlog of complex outstanding transactions, if that's correct, but it won't completely erase that backlog by next March. Is that fair, or can you clarify that?
Yeah, no, so the team in Miramichi, and it's important to note, we have compensation advisors across the country. Obviously, the bulk of them are in New Brunswick. But the Pay Center team has been, over the last year, working on the new material coming into the Pay Center, but also the backlog, so correct. So last year, we had 120 employees working on the backlog. This year, we've upped it to 200. And on top of that, we'll be adding new tools, as I mentioned, such as artificial intelligence. So the expectations is that we are able to continue making an increased dent into the backlog operations. But it's important to note, the Pay Center, as I mentioned, had to intervene 1.6 million times last year to make sure that our pay got out to our various public servants across the country. So they'll obviously be busy processing just regular pay as well.
Thanks. And just a follow-up, I know you might have touched on this in your French answer, but currently there's about 1,100 staff, I believe, at the Miramichi Center. Do you expect that changing at all going forward? And what would its role be in a fully implemented Dayforce?
Yeah, so I suspect that the Pay Center will change over the years. We are deploying new technology, but to be able to say specifically that change right now is too early. As we start moving forward with this transparency by design approach that we want to have, then that information will get released publicly, obviously. But at the moment where we stand right now, we're literally starting that analysis with the Pay Center. I think the big difference from last time is the Pay Center folks in Miramichi and the other folks across the country that work in the Pay Center are directly involved in designing this thing. And frankly, personally, I won't sign off on deploying it unless they're happy. So they have a very big voice and a very big presence in place as part of the project for transformation moving towards Dayforce.
And the last online, Catherine Morrison, Post Media.
Hi there. Thank you so much for your time today. I know you mentioned that Phoenix has already cost $3.5 billion. And now the quarterly report released, that progress report released today, mentioned that about $963 million is expected to be spent in the 2024-25 fiscal year. I'm just wondering if you can maybe comment, share any words for people who might be concerned about the growing cost, especially given that I saw that about $120 million is going to be for a contract with IBM on the IT side. So would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, thank you for your question. Yes, so that is roughly our amount for this year. That is our amount for this year, I should say. It's important to note that that amount is divided in two. It's the current operations to run pay is one half of that amount, and the other portion of it is to start transforming. So yes, we will be looking at a world where we are running both Phoenix and Dayforce in the future. So that is something that we're going to have to continue investigating and managing the cost. Otherwise, we're looking at a big bang deployment, and we're not recommending that. So in order to do this well and steadily, there will be a world where we continue to see an IBM Phoenix contract and a Dayforce contract for the foreseeable future in order to make sure that we don't replicate the mistakes that we did in 2017.
That makes sense. And I know you said that it's likely going to take years in order for the switch to happen. Are you expecting that the government will likely be spending almost $1 billion every year until then?
So at this point, we will be able to provide an answer for that as we go through this year. One of the deliverables this year is a fully costed plan for Dayforce, should it prove to be successful as we continue to configure it. So as soon as we get far enough into that process over the course of the winter, we will have an idea of what the transformation costs will be, and we'll be reporting that here.
Okay, that's everybody. So that concludes today's press conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you.